Happy fall ball, y'all. We back. Kyle Schassburger and David Kahn at Kyle Schass at SportsCon4 on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it. It's good to be back talking college baseball, of all things, here in the middle towards the end of October, just before Halloween. And boy, have we got a treat for you. The LSU head baseball coach, reigning national champion head coach who brought a 7th title back to Baton Rouge in June. Jay Johnson is going to join us on the program. That's for audio-only listeners. You can catch us, as always, on the College Sports Now feed, wherever you podcast. That's Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, all the good stuff. Kahn and I are here on StreamYard today. We're testing new video production software, if you will. So as long as we can get through this cleanly, we'll throw it on the Varsity channel on YouTube as well for all of you to see our beautiful faces. Kahn, good to see you, man. It's been a while. Not really, no. But in the podcast space it has.
Yeah, I was going to say, on podcast video cameras, I haven't seen you in, it seems like a million years. I see you every single day, basically, whether it's your apartment, out somewhere, in the office. So that's always great. But glad to be back podcasting fall ball. This is year 3 for you and I together. No more Michael Serber, unfortunately.
Pour one out for Mr.
Pour one out for El Cerberino. He has left the company and on to bigger and brighter things.
But he has not left life.
No.
He is very much alive. In fact, he is more alive than he has ever been.
Absolutely. And we are happy for him. We're so happy for him. We'll miss him on this feed. Maybe if we have a Clemson-centric podcast, Serber will just kind of make a clandestine appearance on the podcast again. But great to be back with you. Excited to talk to Jay Johnson because, who wouldn't want to talk to the reigning national champion head coach? And we're going to get to do that. So I'm thrilled for that and thrilled for whatever else we're going to get into here on this fall ball edition of College Sports Now.
We got a couple of topics off the front end and a little bit of fun on the back end of Jay Johnson. I should mention Chris Blair, LSU Radio Network, for those that are listening to the podcast. You heard the final call when LSU was able to knock off Florida in the 3rd game. That was on a Monday night. Gosh, go back. It was that long ago. It feels like 2 or 3 years ago. But honestly, it was just 4 months ago when LSU was able to cut down Florida in a couple of lopsided games. Certainly 2 and 3, but my goodness, what a year it was for the LSU Tigers. We'll unpack that. Kahn and I will, and of course Jay Johnson will help to paint a picture, look back at what was a memorable, historic, dominant season for much of the time for those LSU Fighting Tigers, and we'll also look back at how Jay got to Baton Rouge to begin with, some ironic circumstances, even while he was the head coach at Arizona, as we have story time with Jay. And pulling back the curtain, we've already had the interview. He was fantastic. He was awesome. Kahn, he gave us almost 30 minutes. And to help set the table for LSU in 2024 as they're in the midst of their fall ball season, as every program is at this point, trying to get reps. And, he gave us a little bit of clarity on who's back and, some of the strong positions for LSU as they look to potentially repeat in 2024, which last happened with South Carolina 2010-2011 season.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you look at LSU, people go, oh, well, look at all the guys they lost, namely Paul Skeens, Dylan Cruz, of course, 1 and 2. You've also got Braden Jobert. You've got Trey Morgan, among others. Ty Floyd, gone. Like, there's so many pieces from this 2023 team that you go, no way. Not a chance can LSU run this back. Here's the thing. They absolutely can. They hammered in the transfer portal. Biggest snag for them was Luke Holman from Alabama, and Jay Johnson will talk about that transfer and how Luke has assimilated into the LSU pitching staff, which, according to Jay, is dealing right now with their new pitching coach, Nate Yeski, after Wes Johnson hit the road for Athens and is now going to help out the Georgia Bulldogs in 2024. But LSU's got all these new pieces brought in, and they still have the most recognizable face and brand of their program in Tommy White, who is now the true clubhouse leader for LSU in 2024. Are they going to run it back? We have no idea, but I think they have a better chance than people are giving them credit for because they've still got Jay Johnson. They've got a phenomenal new pitching coach. They brought in some good talent in the transfer portal, and they know they can do it, right? They were number 1 at the beginning of the year, number 1 at the end of the year. Teams haven't done that in a long, long time. So props to LSU for doing it, getting it done, and they can do it again.
Who else is going to legitimately challenge LSU at repeating this year? A team out of the SEC, we know, because I don't know if it's going to come from any other league. I'm sorry. I'm just speaking facts.
Not this year.
Not this year.
After realignment, who knows? Because the Big 12 and the Big 10 just got real juicy in terms of college baseball, especially coming into 2025, 2026, and beyond.
Well, That's a great segue, Con. Before we do go to conference realignment, we'll talk about that and maybe some potential rule changes before we bring Jay on. The question about LSU repeating, I think hands down they're the favorite, right? Like, who else would be the favorite heading into 2024? But, Tommy White, I forget that he's even there, honestly. And he was the hero. Like,
think
about
the quintessential moment of the College World Series. He hit the shot heard round the world, modern day era, when he won it against Wake Forest. You and I were watching that game together, and your jaw dropped and didn't come off the floor for 5 minutes.
No, it did not. And Jay actually picks apart that moment in our conversation coming up. It's truly remarkable stuff. But think about the pitching, and they're very left-handed dominant. They've got some strong left-handed pitching. And think about the injuries that they had to navigate when they really hit, when the questions really started to become more deep, like we really were scratching our head and wondering if this team would have what it takes to overcome the injuries that they were seeing in their staff, from Chase Shores to Griffin Herring, some of these young guys that are now healthy and back. Yes, Edwards. But you get Ackenhausen back. Yeah, Thatcher Hurd, of course, who is one of the main reasons why LSU was able to turn the page on some of those late regular season series losses to and Auburn, right? And
Auburn,
Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State. And then, losing a couple of games of the SEC tournament. And Jay will talk about all of this, but you get those guys back. What about Javion Coleman? I mean, that's a dude who couldn't even start the year because he was still recovering from Tommy John. And, God, they are stacked on the mound. You mix in some other new faces. I mean, Jay's not going to ignore, the transfer portal. Look what he did heading into last year, with Tommy White and Paul Skeens. So, this team is loaded again. Yeah, there's no Paul Skeens. There's no Dylan Cruz. I understand. I get that. Picks 1 and 2, right, in the draft are gone. Both, LSU is responsible for, and now the big intimidator out in right field has a 7th national championship trophy to show for it. I'd like to say that we could have more parity beyond the SEC, where there might be a team out of the ACC that can legitimately challenge what the SEC has to offer, or the Big 12, or the Pac-12. I say that, but then I also know, I'm okay with the SEC continuing to win, honestly, because we know best facilities, best coaches, best athletes. It's the reality of the situation. And whether or not conference realignment can shake that up and help, create more parity, it remains to be seen. Texas and Oklahoma enter the league next season, not in 2024, but the 2025 baseball season. But what does this mean for Oregon and Washington and UCLA and USC, who are going to the Big Ten? The Big 12 is going to look a lot different. I mean, maybe we will find teams that can, refine some of those glory days and get a little more dominant in new look leagues that can help build momentum into Omaha.
Yeah, and you wonder about all of that, but you touched on the fact real quickly, LSU going into the transfer portal and bringing guys in. Luke Holman, obviously the superstar of that group. Here's a guy I think we should be watching in 2024. Michael Braswell, outfielder from South Carolina. I think he hit around like 230 last year. It's kind of middle of the road in terms of, what he was able to do for the Gamecocks, but he's quick. We saw him in Hoover. He's fast, and he has a decent arm too. I think he's going to be a real centerpiece of LSU in 2024. The people are not going to be expecting him to come on and potentially have a big year. Just an early season prediction from me. I think Michael Braswell, best year of his career in the purple and gold coming in 2024.
All right, conference realignment. Let's talk a little bit about that before we get to Jay and maybe a rule change or two. Things that have been pondered. The shift is one of those. Considering what Major League Baseball did, is that something that's going to come to college baseball? Redshirt rule, roster management, all of these things. We're still operating under a lot of COVID-like rules, and how might that change in terms of how many players are available on a team and the usage of scholarship and that sort of thing. But Kahn, tell me what your impressions are and even your reactions to all of this movement across these big leagues and how it might impact the two remaining schools in what is currently still known as the Pac-12. And Oregon State, a baseball powerhouse. They haven't gotten back to Omaha in the post-Paul Casey era, but a team with multiple College World Series championships and Omaha appearances, and Washington State, who's left for dead, if you will, as well. Those two are on the outside looking in, but I mentioned the teams moving to the Big Ten. Think about the Big 12, and Arizona State is going there. Arizona. Two very proud
Colorado.
baseball. Colorado, another school. Impact. Thinking of all the sports that fall under the umbrella of what the Big 12 is. I mean, football is one thing, but think about baseball. Think of all the complications that this creates from a travel standpoint. I mean, these are all the negatives, right? But let's focus on the positives. Competitively, this could create some rare opportunities for schools that aren't accustomed, to being on the precipice of being able to knock on the door and burst into the postseason with a certain amount of momentum or production from years past.
It could be. And if you want to start there, let's start there, because that puts us on the Pac-12 conference. The Big 10 got better. The Big 12 got insanely better. And they were already, in my eyes, the number 2 conference in college baseball behind the SEC. ACC is, they're like 2A and 2B with the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is cementing itself way above the ACC as the number 2 conference in college baseball with the teams that they're adding, Arizona, Arizona State, among others. And you look at the Pac-12, right? So the Pac-12's now got, or Pac-4, we should say, Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, Washington State. Start with Oregon State.
Stanford and Cal are going to the ACC.
Right. So you start with right now we look at the Pac-12. You start with Oregon State. You mentioned the fact that they are a powerhouse program. They haven't broken through to Omaha in a little bit, but they're always in the mix. Washington State was the darling of February last year in college baseball. We were talking about all of a sudden, here come the Washington State Cougars, a February team that plays where? In the state of Washington, where it is below freezing in the month of February, and they're going on the road and just winning left and right. And we thought, oh my goodness, maybe the Cougs are going to cause some upset in the Pac-12. Didn't happen. But
is Brian Green the smartest man in America? That dude jumped ship at Washington State to take the Wichita State job.
He sure did.
It's like he knew what was happening before it even came to fruition.
He might have. I mean, look, we talked about last year. We broke some news about some inside information getting passed around in college baseball, unfortunately, of the illegal nature for one program down south. But Stanford and Cal. Stanford has to find a home simply because they're too big of a program. They're too big of a brand in college baseball. I mean, the story of Quinn Matthews last year, ran throughout the college baseball postseason. Stanford's a consistent contender in Omaha. They have to find a spot. Cal, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, but they're a big name brand. So you kind of think, okay, someone's going to want Cal. The question is, does baseball matter enough to these other conferences that they're going to want to go get an Oregon State that has a baseball history, but other sports, football and men's basketball especially, not as much. Washington State, kind of the same deal, despite the fact the Cougs are having a great football season, or they were until they, ran into the likes of UCLA, and then Arizona, went into Pullman last week and just, destroyed them. So that was a unfortunate slip up for Washington State. But I think this creates a very unique opportunity for teams in the Big West and the Mountain West. You name teams like all those Cal whatever schools that we talked about, UC Irvine, UC Davis, etc. We've mentioned them as like potential sleepers in the postseason field of 64, which there's talks about that expanding as well that we'll get into. But you bring them up, you bring up Air Force as well. Paul Skeens was on Air Force, made that program stand out a couple years ago. They also can contend in the Mountain West. So there's an opportunity here, unlike in football and basketball, to blend these 3 conferences together and maybe create your own kind of lower tier, but still super conference with the best teams of all of them. And it helps with the RPI issue that we are going to continue to hammer until it gets fixed, because it's a problem. And it gives teams in the Mountain West and the Big West a chance to play Power 5 teams, quote unquote, and improve their RPI if they can beat those teams, and maybe get more teams from that new conference or that grouping of those 3 conferences into the field of 64. And as we've seen in years past, anything can happen.
So why don't they just create an alliance, right? Is that
right.
what you're suggesting? Similar to what the Big Ten, fraudulently, and Kevin Warren at the time, the commissioner, was trying to accomplish, with commissioners from the ACC in Jim Phillips and the Pac-12 and George Khalilkoff, which, didn't stand. So had no legs to stand on after a while. But yeah, I mean, it's a precarious position. I mean, it's fascinating. You team up and you have, sport-specific type leagues and coalitions and alliances just to help, beef up your strength of schedule and your conference footing. And what you represent to help for the postseason, which all signs are pointing towards an expanded postseason too.
Yeah.
At the same time, Kahn. I mean, it's been talked about for college basketball mightily, and getting to kind of a 25% type representation, 1/4 of the sport. Well, in college baseball, that's the equivalent of 72 to 75 teams. So, are you for expanding the tournament? Because that, I feel like that's the next thing that's going to come down in a year, maybe 2 tops. But I think sooner rather than later.
I'm not against it. Here's the thing. What's wrong with it, in my opinion? There's constantly this cloud over the first 4 out and the next 4 out every year that we see, which would get you from 64 to 72. Every single year that said, oh, why this one team over this one team when they're basically the same? And then you get the committee to give us some reason that may or may not be true. It may just be what they want to put out there publicly. Who knows? Why not put 8 additional teams in? We've seen over the last 2 years, especially, namely with Ole Miss being the last team in and going to win it all in Omaha, and then LSU kind of limping in to the postseason after their performance in Hoover, which Jay Johnson will talk about how they reset from that coming up here in a couple of minutes. But then they came in and steamrolled everybody and took care of business in Omaha, won it all, and got the national championship. The parity in college baseball is bigger, I think, than in any other of the major sports right now. And by putting more teams in, you allow that parity to continue to grow, because here's the thing. In a super regional, it's best 2 out of 3, right? We saw that with Oral Roberts taking out Oregon in Eugene. We've seen that in the past. Indiana State, coming in and trying to throw bows with TCU. Like those are 2 examples from the past year, and there's plenty more to detail. But I think it's great. Sure, put 8 more teams in. Why not? Create 2 more regional sites. I mean, if you can, or expand the regional sites to 5 teams, or however you need to make it work. You could even shorten the regional sites to 12 teams and make it a 6-team bracket if you have 72 teams. Like, there's many different ways to skin this cat, and I don't really see any negatives to putting in 72 teams. I don't know how much further you want to go beyond that, because then you start kind of picking from the bottom of the barrel. There is a cutoff line, I think, in college baseball that we've seen, especially with the RPI metrics. But 72, I don't think would be a big deal.
It's just a matter of how it's formatted, too, and how it factors in to the region sites and that sort of thing. And, not penalizing the best teams who are seeded, 1 through 4 or 1 through 8, the top 8 national seeds. I don't know. It's fascinating. I'm not against it entirely either, but, we're moving the goalposts on those last 4 teams. As you began there, you noted, look, we're raising hell about the last team in, or those last 4 in, and the first 4 out. Well, now we're going to be talking about, teams 70, 71, 72, for example, and 73, 74, 75 being left out, or, somewhere around that, to that effect. So, but it's unavoidable. That's going to be a part of it, no matter how many teams are in the tournament. And, with more and more teams making the transition, and I think the NCAA, this might have got lost in the shuffle in the last couple of weeks, early in October. I think the NCAA and FCS football programs, where you're seeing a lot of these jumps, and expanding the sport, which doesn't affect necessarily baseball and all the other, collegiate sports, but there's stricter penalties that are being instituted, financial penalties for certain moves up. I think it's $5 million now. No, that's low. It's something absurd that an FCS. Might be 10. I think it's greater than that. I can't remember now off. I'm missing probably a couple of zeros, but I gawked at it when I saw it on Twitter earlier in October, where an FCS school has to pay X amount of money if they want to exit to go FBS. And I know it's not the same, but you're opening the door for more movement and more teams, whether that's D2 to D1 and what have you. So the NCAA is trying to put a lid on this and prevent it and really make it hurt. I wish
the bowl penalties, like the postseason penalties, JMU.
Yeah, I wish they would remove the whole postseason, ineligibility aspect of this, though, because if they're willing to put themselves and pay the fine, why are we keeping them out of the postseason when you have teams like James Madison, who's undefeated through 7 games of the college football season, and this is year 2 where they can't go to a bowl, and they might be the best team in the Sun Belt, and Jacksonville State, who is 6-2, already bowl eligible, first year since moving up from FCS, can't go to a bowl either. So, I don't know, man. All right, rule changes. What do you got for me? What jumps off the page? I know D1 baseball, our friends, Mike Rooney, Joe Healy, and Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers. They're still potting. Mark Etheridge, they're hitting the pavement
potting
hard.
They are
potting hard. Even Stephen Schock and the boys, the Schock Factor, all of that.
He's on a road trip.
He is. He is. I noticed that. All these guys, no days off. I mean, maybe immediately in the aftermath of the College World Series, but these guys are pumping out year-round content. Kahn, you and I just show up with College Sports Now. We parachute, we fall out of the sky with a fall ball episode here at the end of October. So, look, we're doing what we can for the cause, but please supplement this content with D1 Baseball and those guys at d1baseball.com. We always, give them the highest recommendation. We appreciate what they do, and they help provide us, some deep thinking, storybook type items for us to ponder and consider. So one of the things with rule changes for me, as I mentioned already, was the shift. I like it in Major League Baseball. I don't know if it would really play well in college, and I'm not exactly sure why. I just feel like these hitters should be able to beat the shift that they want,
Correct.
and you should be teaching them that, and they should be practicing on that. And I don't know. I don't want the game like college football becoming too much like the NFL with the clock changes and that we have experienced here in 2023. So this could be one of those fundamental differences in college baseball. Shift away. Do whatever the hell you want, but the whole right side of the field or the whole left side is open. Hey, college hitter, go ahead and find the hole in the zone. Do it.
Yeah, I'm against Major League Baseball taking away the shift, first of all. So I'm totally against the college game taking away the shift. And it's exactly what you said, Schass. If the left side of the infield is open, guess what? Hit it the other way. Congratulations, you're on base. Like, you're a college hitter. You're one step away from making the pros. And now you can get paid as a college athlete. Thank you, NIL. So if you're getting paid for what you're doing on the field, quote unquote, in college, you are in the pros, but quote unquote in college, you should be able to hit the ball all sides of the field if you're a college athlete on scholarship. Sorry. You should. And if you can't, bunt. Left side of the infield, right side of the infield. You're on base. Congratulations. I don't see the reason why they have to get rid of the shift and force the issue defensively. If a player also on the other side of the coin, if you're a defense and you're watching film and you go, okay, Tommy White pulls the ball 85% of the time. We're going to put 3 infielders on the left side, and we're going to put our left fielder down the line, our center fielder in left center, and our right fielder in basically center field. Okay, why not? That's where he hits the ball. If Tommy White can hit it the other way, claps to Tommy White. If he can't, then you get an out a whole lot easier. It's analytics. You're watching film, you're learning, you're analyzing, you're updating your game plan. Why ruin the purity of that and the ability to study and find the little advantages that you need to win a baseball game? That's part of what is so cool about watching these coaching staffs and these growing analytic departments in college baseball that we talked about with Wake Forest and all this stuff they do with their pitching lab. That's the beauty of watching this sport grow, and the NCAA is just trying to, dangle their fingers in and muddy the waters even more, and I don't see the reason why.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The strategizing, the chess game that exists, if you want to shift, okay. And that hitter should be able to beat it, or at least attempt to. And it should be practiced, and it should be executed. And it's all part of the game. It's the nuance. Let's not pigeonhole and become too strict in standardizing, defensive placements and things like that. This isn't basketball. This isn't a legal defense. Come on. What are we doing? It's not football either. There should be some freelancing involved. This is baseball. The purity, as you put it, should be protected. We talked about the NCAA tournament possibly expanding. Before we get to Jay, tell me about redshirt rules, because I know this is another question that has been posed, whether or not a player should be able to or could play, let's say, that 25%. Like in football, it's 4 games, which represents – that's a little more than 20. That's 33%, I guess.
It's a third. It's a third of the season, right?
Yeah, a third of the season in college football. There's questions of how that rule or what the rule should be for college baseball players being able to play a certain amount of the season and not burn a full year of eligibility.
So, right now, the rule is you play 25% of the season. You don't have a hardship or a season-ending injury. Eligibility is done for that year. It's burned. You can't get it back. Why?
Yeah.
Like, why not, especially when we talk about these early games that we're playing non-conference, which we've seen some teams non-conferences end up mattering more than others in terms of RPI. There's the whole RPI thing come back and again. We're never going to get away from it, and it's annoying, but fine. Why does it matter? If you're one of these Power 5 teams and you're playing teams that you should realistically beat every single time, especially in the midweek games early on, why not play some of your younger guys and give them the opportunity to play in the first month and a half of the season before conference play begins? And you're going to penalize them and say, oh, you only have 3 more years remaining of college eligibility because you got sprinkled in here and there and played 1 at bat in each of these games or a couple innings in the field. What? Why? Like, if they want to stay in college an extra year, more power to them, especially with NIL in the mix now. These kids are staying in college more because they can make more money, frankly, staying in college, and they have a better chance of getting drafted higher if they're not one of the, top 5-10 round picks that we see every single year that are the top level, top tier talent. So I like the red shirt rule. Why not? I mean, I think it would be beneficial to everybody's development if they have that, because then you're not worried about, and if you're a coach, you're not worried about playing these guys a certain amount of games and being like, oh, hang on, he's played too many games, we can't play him ever again the rest of the year, and then guess what? You have an injury and you play him and he's burned.
Well, think about how much more difficult it's become to manage these rosters because of the transfer portal, and you get the ability to play immediately. I mean, it pretty much is free agency, at least one time. The NCAA is going to come down on you a second time, and there's certain waiver process and all of those things. But, we've created free agency over the last couple of years and allowing a one-time transfer, and boom, you can play right away. And teams are dipping in and out of that and using it to their advantage, rightfully so, as they should. But that's impacting now how certain programs are recruiting and what players' expectations might be when they arrive on campus as a freshman. And, let's say you're a freshman shortstop who's a stud and could be competing for a starting spot, but then all of a sudden, another shortstop from a Power 5 program transfers into that Power 5 program you're currently at, and that creates a logjam. That creates an issue. Or a senior. Let's say he comes in for his final year, but you're that star freshman, and all of a sudden you're turned off because you're not going to get a certain opportunity, and you want to go in the portal yourself. Well, if we allow these players, and we openly talk about allowing these guys to play a certain amount without burning eligibility, whether that's 25%, 33%, before we hit conference season, hey, they can play as much as they can prior to the conference year starting, just as an example, maybe that'll be a carrot that can be dangled in front of them. And not, maybe it's not what we talk about out loud. It's not the coaches, openly, exhausting this as a resource to keep their younger players from transferring, but it is what it is. Like, that's the reality of the situation. You want to get them reps. Like, this can help provide further incentive to be able to balance your roster with older talent, transfer talent, mix in the new guys, develop the guys who are already there and bringing them along, and you're going to have a older, more veteran team with an infusion of youth to help make you a long-term contender where you're not reinventing your roster every single year, because that's just driving these programs, these coaches, absolutely buck wild, and that goes for every sport.
Absolutely. It's a great recruiting tool, I think, is kind of the genesis of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you bring in these younger guys and you say, hey, look, we're going to give you the opportunity to play for a little bit so you can prove to us, prove to your team, prove to this fan base that you deserve to be here. You can challenge the players with this redshirt rule and say, look, you're going to play this many amount of games this year. We're jammed up at your position, but we like you. We see you as a part of the future of this team, and we're going to give you an opportunity to present yourself by having you start in a certain amount of games early on in the season. And then we're going to redshirt you. You're not going to play the rest of the year, but it's okay because you're not going to lose your college eligibility. And I think that's a very powerful recruiting message, especially to these, the Power 5 teams that are going in and trying to pluck these, the top recruits from all over the country. And sometimes they don't get them because they look at the current roster and go, they have a 5-star shortstop and he's a junior. I'm not going to play for 2 years. Yeah, I'm going to go to junior college and then come over. Well, this might change that.
Absolutely, and I think it will. It's Jay Johnson time. We've gone about 30 minutes, Con. We've gone longer than we planned for. What do you know? Surprise, surprise. By the way, the sun is starting to pierce through here as I am in the Showcase Studios bordering Trade Street, downtown Winston-Salem. You're about 50 feet behind me in a closet. No, it is an office. A closet office. Yes, you are
Yeah.
pointing at me. As we're in separate rooms. Don't want the echo or any of that. So let's bring in Jay Johnson again. Audio only. So if you're watching on the Varsity channel on YouTube here, as we drop this pod, it's available archived on the Varsity channel on YouTube. Subscribe. Get those notifications if you haven't already. You will just get us continuing to talk like we just had Jay Johnson on if you're watching on video. So we'll pause for a second. We'll jump back in. Again, Jay Johnson, national champion head coach of the LSU Fighting Tigers, will be our guest coming up next. For those audio listeners, College Sports Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you podcast. Make sure you subscribe to CSN. Rate, review, subscribe. So much content. College football, 3 shows a week, 4 if you count the Phil Steele show, which we have Trip Hurd with as well. Basketball right around the corner. Matt Norlander will be joining Stephen Hartzell, who hosts most of those as well. And, of course, the Fall Ball Edition with David Kahn. I am Kyle Schassburger. Back with more. Jay Johnson coming up next here on College Sports Now. All right, so we just had Jay. I talked about the sun piercing in. We're bringing the ping, though, here in October. And I tell you what, Jay Johnson brought the fire. He brought the heat, Con, because that was an incredible interview. There were so many things. We could have had him on for an hour. I felt like we could have talked to him for 2 hours. Like, I had enough substance. I had enough material in my mind. I was getting notes from my family down in Louisiana, to ask about this and that, and this player at these facilities, and all of these long-term type. They're going to put in a new hitting facility. They're going to have a pitching facility that they're going to turn it. The current hitting facility will be their new pitching laboratory, if you will. Don't know if Wake has that trademark, but there'll be a new building for hitters. They want to move the bullpens behind the batter's eye, all these reconfigurations, Alex Box Stadium, the environment at the box, we didn't even really get to drill down on, but Jay Johnson was awesome. He talked a lot about the fan base, the support, the program, the influences around him, how he came to Baton Rouge, and my goodness, it only took 2 years, but LSU, he's got him back on top of the college baseball mountain.
I mean, you heard it in Chris Blair's final call at the start of this podcast. Jay Johnson came 2 years ago and said, my goal is to go to Omaha and win it all. 2 years later, done. He still got plenty more to do, and he mentioned, he's like, the job is not done. We've won once. Now we want to keep winning. Here's what I would love to do with Jay Johnson, and it's never going to happen because the man's time is way too valuable. I would love to sit down with him for however long it takes and just name every single person on the roster and let him speak. Because the people we talked about, Jay went into just such great detail and such insider knowledge that is not out there about all these guys, and just had so many great stories, like talking about how he broke back into the Chuck after winning it all and just sitting in the first base dugout watching the sunrise up till 4:30 in the morning in the hotel lobby. I mean, so many great little tiny details. You brought up his covert mission to see Alex Box Stadium when he was going to Lafayette to speak at that convention. I mean, there were so many different little things.
A big Lincoln Riley fan.
Yeah,
well.
huge
big
Lincoln
college
Riley
football
fan.
He would
Jay
be
Johnson,
a college football coach if he
fullback
wasn't coach of
coach.
baseball. Yes.
Yes, a fullback coach. But yeah, I would love to just go through the roster and name every single player and say, player name, talk. Player name, talk. Because I feel like I would get more information from that than I would reading every single college baseball game notes from every team in America for the entire season. He knows that much about his team.
He was awesome. Not that I expected. Well, I sort of did. I mean, when we go into these interviews, it's our job, when we get a coach, someone of that ilk, if you will, and even players for different reasons. You try to crack them open. You try to, give a little bit of personality, some energy, hit them with a good icebreaker author, whatever you can do to kind of open them up, make them feel comfortable. And I don't know if we really did it. I'm not here to judge whether or not we did a good job, but he was a willing participant. Like he didn't feel like we were wasting his time. He did not feel bothered, agitated, or any of those things that he was having to come on with us for what we budgeted out to be 20 minutes, and he went nearly 30 with us. Like, he wanted to be there. He had a good time. That was a very authentic, genuine Jay Johnson that, again, for me, because I got my antennas up, I'm sure you're the same way. You got your guard up with these guests, and you're hoping that they can cooperate and actually have a conversation with you. And, he did more than that. The reigning D1 baseball Coach of the Year, entering his 3rd season, has LSU as the reigning national champions in search of an 8th straight title. And as we talked off the top, some of the chances of them potentially repeating, it's pretty strong. They're going to be the odds-on favorite. Yeah,
I like it. Yeah.
To be able to run that thing back. I didn't tease the Halloween costume portion of the program, Con, but I do know you wanted to talk that. I want to hit you with a dude and a hat tip. You've got a couple of selections as well as we come come to you here at the end of October, just before Halloween, when this podcast drops and is available. My man, are you going to reveal any specifics of your Halloween costume? And do you even, where do we wear Halloween? Do you have a party? You do have a party.
Yeah, I do.
And you're able to go this year.
Yes, I'm able to go because West Virginia's playing at noon. Thank God. My first nooner of the year, and that means I get to go to my party that I like to go to every year. I'm not going to reveal the specific costume. All I will say is that my costume is me dressing up as a certain famous image that a lot of people around here know and will think is amazing. That's all I'm going to say.
Mike Tingle.
No.
No. Okay. All right.
No. I'll tell you. I will tell you offline, but in case the person I'm referencing is watching, they're listening to this podcast, I don't want to give it away because this is coming out before Halloween.
Okay.
And they don't know that I'm replicating them.
Well, I got nowhere to be for Halloween, but here, probably with College Football Saturday Night. Listen on the Varsity Network app. Download the Varsity app if you haven't already. You should have if you're listening to this college baseball podcast, because you know you can get hometown broadcasts for most every team, certainly in football and men's basketball, the majority of them all, and so many baseball schools that are involved as well, the audio product. But College Football Saturday Night, I don't know who we have that particular day.
I don't know if you've decided it yet, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think we've decided.
Chris and Gojo, by the way, killer team.
Chris Hassel, CBS Sports HQ, phenomenal play-by-play guy. Mike Golick Jr., Gojo, he's awesome as well. So the Varsity Network app, get that. But I'll probably be working, but I will have a costume on because I have a camera on me in studio. You were able to share your lifeguard tank with me a year ago, and I was lifeguard Schass, and I wore the bucket hat, and I had the suntan lotion gobbed all over my nose, still was rocking the mustache, had the shades, had the short shorts, had a towel. Yeah, I had the whole thing going. This year, I'm going to be a playboy.
A playboy? I thought you were going to be white trash.
No, think of the quintessential mansion bachelor. Think of Hugh Hefner.
Are you Hugh Hefner? Yeah, you're going to be Hugh Hefner.
Think of that.
Okay.
But I don't want to go as
I already know
as
what
far
you're
as
going to
to
wear.
say Hugh.
I already know what you're wearing.
You know part of what I'm wearing, but I've also made the purchase of a wig.
I also bought a wig.
I will have hair.
My wig got delivered today.
Oh,
for my costume.
What a day. What a day. So I've got a wig coming. There will be shades involved. There will be,
The Vipers? Are you wearing the Vipers?
Maybe a smoke and a pancake. Pipe and a waffle.
Maybe
probably
Mike
a pipe.
Mike
probably
Ditka,
a pipe.
Bears?
No, that was Ditka 2 years ago.
I know. But
I do re-rack costumes, but not that often, Kahn. Come on, give me some credit.
No. I'm saying you're going to use the cigar that you used when you were Ditka.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with a pipe. I think a pipe might be more fitting.
Okay. A little Sherlock Holmes-esque?
Yeah. A little rocks glass, get a little, maybe some wine. I don't know.
Ooh.
Think of, all right, HBO did a series. It's impeccable. It's awesome. It's on the LA Lakers, all right, Magic Johnson, winning time.
Yeah.
Dr. Jerry Buss and Magic, and it's more fictional. I mean, it's based on, obviously, the true and relevant and accuracy of history, I suppose. You as a Celtics fan would know how that went most of the time.
Absolutely.
Against the Lakers. But anyways, 2 seasons. I didn't even know there was a second season coming out. I just recently stumbled into season 2. I was all over season 1 over a year ago, or last spring. I think that was 2022. Anyways, Dr. Jerry Buss kind of gives off the vibe that I'm going for Halloween. So I'm not going to go as far as to say, I'm Hugh Hefner or Dr. Jerry Buss, both who are deceased, by the way. Again, pour one out. Not Serber, though. He's very much alive.
Very alive. We've seen and talked to Serber. He's fine. Don't worry.
I will give off some of those vibes. A very luxurious, casual, comfortable Schass.
I look forward to it.
Yes, that will be my costume. All right, off-season dudes and a hat tip. You and I could probably both agree here, but I'm going to go with Zach Bryan, just a magician when it comes to music and his rising fame in the country music space and how much we had to pay for concert tickets that are still a year away.
You ready to go? I'm ready to go.
God, I am ready to go. Even the EP, man, the songs you said you didn't like on his 6-song release or 5-song release since that features Sarah's Place, dude, you just got to keep listening, man, because they're all bangers.
It wasn't that
everything he's putting out are all bangers.
I do want to clarify. I liked the songs. I just didn't like. There was one. Sarah's Place stood out to me the most of the 6.
Yeah.
So
but the one with Bon Iver is my favorite, and that was the one I think you said you didn't like.
That was the one I liked the least, actually.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Well, look, they're all good. But he put out his new album,
they're all good. Yeah,
self-titled album before that. And the Quitting Time Tour, Con and I each have tickets to at the Greensboro Coliseum, which isn't until August 4th of next year.
2024.
We bought those tickets a
We're
year
gonna be
out.
done with college baseball by the time we go to this concert.
Hopefully we're in Omaha. Good vibes there, I could suppose.
bless.
So, Zach Bryan is my dude. What about you?
So my dude is Hurston Waldrop, which I know I'm going a little more, on the nose here with a baseball guy, but here's why it's Hurston Waldrop. So Waldrop, of course, spent 2023 with the Florida Gators, helped dominate. They got within one win of winning the college baseball national championship. Then he gets drafted 24th overall by the Atlanta Braves. And by the time the year is over, my man has played at 4 levels of the minor league system. Started in low A with the Augusta Green Jackets, went to the Rome Braves, high A, Mississippi Braves, double A, and then the 4th level, Gwinnett in triple A. My man made it to triple A in his first season. It took him a grand total, as I look at this right now, of 7 starts to get to Gwinnett. And you know what he did in his only start with the Braves? 4 1/3 shutout, 4 hits, 5 strikeouts in his AAA debut in his final start of 2023. And that's after he pitched a full college season of 19 starts, 101 2/3 innings for the Florida Gators. So, Hurston Waldrop, you're a damn good dude.
Ultimate dude right there. That's awesome. I remember when you shared that nugget with me. I had to do a double, if not triple take on.
I did too. I was like, why are we rushing him up? But I mean, hey, he did well. So
his
good for him.
ascent through the minor league system, certainly spectacular. Very unprecedented for sure for Hurston Waldrop. Hat tips. This is one I just added. It's not on the dock, and I know you've seen this. Tulane, the fall uniforms, oh my God, impeccable. And why would we expect anything different? Like not full button down, but like t-shirt, thick, kind of V-cut, V-neck up here. Oh God, with the double bird on the bat, but then just that was one version. But the other version for the other team in their inner scrimmage, their World Series, whatever they're branding,
olive and blue scrimmage, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, both of them were just. Chef's kiss. Amazing. And then I saw something as I was going through Twitter looking at those uniforms and just, the eye candy that is Tulane Green Wave baseball.
Yeah.
I saw Jay Ullman. He got gifted a broken fungo.
Yep.
That was delivered to him as like a trophy from the team. Touche.
So he's had that fungo for his entire coaching career, like multiple stops. It broke last year, like just shattered. And he's had that for forever. So I believe Curtis Akey, who's the director of baseball operations, my former boss and a great person, when I was at Tulane in the athletic communications department, grabbed the fungo and got it framed like he did. So he's had that his entire career, and it snapped. It was a sad day when that bat snapped. I mean, Tulane baseball was all over it. So props to Curtis and the team for doing that for him.
My real hat tip, though, Britney Spears, cinema, action in general. I'm going back to the movie theaters on Monday night. It's Britney Spears that is bringing me back. It is a re-airing of Crossroads, the 2001 movie, a global fan event. Okay, now this podcast is releasing between the 2 days that movie is in theaters. But October, what is that? 24th and 26th?
That'd be the 23rd that it would come out if it's Monday.
23rd and 25th, a global fan event as Crossroads is back in select theaters. 22 years later. So I will be checking out Britney. I actually listened to a little bit of some old school Britney Spears at the gym while I was getting my gains earlier today. A little known fact about Kyle Schassburger. As a young pup, might have been maybe, 11, 12 years old, consecutive Christmases, I would get Britney Spears albums under the Christmas tree, CDs. I love Britney.
I didn't know that.
Even Christina Aguilera. I think of Genie in a Bottle. Genie in a bottle, baby.
It's Britney, bitch. I mean,
yeah. But Britney, I mean, those two, I was in love. Loved them all. Had all their music. So Britney's coming up, but it made me think of holiday movies, too, and holiday cinema, and, we're getting in, to the spirit. I mean, it's time. Halloween is the gateway. It is the entry point. Halloween movies started thinking about all this, but, like, holiday movies and Halloween one specifically is what is really, setting the tone here. This is our entry into a festive season. So thank you to holiday movie cinema.
It is, but I'm going to get on my pedestal, and I'm going to get flack for this. I always do. I don't think you should be putting up your Christmas and whatever other decorations until after Thanksgiving. period. There are already Christmas decorations up. They've been up since July. Put them away. Halloween is October. Thanksgiving is November. Christmas and everything else is December.
I can approve of some Christmas middle November. Maybe not your entire house decked out.
Okay,
I'm
I'd
okay with
accept
the
that.
I'm
I'd
okay
accept
with
that.
the tree being up for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm okay just to get a jump start on it. But yeah, nothing should be up pre-November.
I'd accept that. I would accept that.
Like I would wait until middle. Like you need to wait until middle November at worst. Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like you might feel a little more strongly on
No,
the.
I'd accept that.
Okay.
I would accept what you. That's a good compromise. I would honor that and say that's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, keep your decorations away until after Thanksgiving. Let us enjoy the food holiday that we all so much crave every year. Okay. Even though you and I will not be in the continental United States for Thanksgiving this year.
We will. Not. All right. What's your hat tip?
So my hat tip is to a fall-related thing, cooler weather. Bro, this summer was hot. It was hot. I mean,
Yeah, but what
hot
would you
from,
do to be back at Oak Island right now? Okay? Come on.
Okay.
You got to look through the proper
that-
prism here.
Absolutely, but here's the thing. I would enjoy Oak Island just as much in this mid-60s weather as I did in the 98-degree weather. Honestly, as long as the sun is out, I would still enjoy it because I want the sun out, but I don't want it to be 98 freaking degrees and 200% humidity
While we're hiking
for
6
months.
miles down the shoreline
Exactly.
with our last 4 beers, our shirts
From
off,
like a 24-pack.
getting rash on our inner thighs, carrying everything for 6 miles.
I had a blister on my right foot for like 2
Yeah,
weeks
God.
after that.
It was worth it, man.
That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
I do enjoy
but yeah,
the
I
cooler
love
weather.
the cooler weather. When it gets too cold, like below 55, I kind of get a little dicey. But 55 to 70, 72-ish, that's my ideal temperature range. Keep it there. Put it in a dome. Keep that little, ecosystem just at that rangy temperature up and down day and night. I'm fine. Cooler weather. Love it. Happy it's here. Needed a break from the heat. Got sunburned too many times. Happy with it. Love it.
All right, man. That's it. That's all I got too.
We got some fun stuff coming up though. This podcast season.
Holiday pod.
We should tease it. Yeah, holiday pod's coming. We haven't discussed much, but I have an idea for a guest and a topic that we should delve into deeply. We'll talk about that off air, but we will have a holiday pod coming in December. If you have any ideas for what we should talk about holiday wise, let us know because right now the episode script is blank. And it will be probably until the week before because that's how we roll on college sports now. We have regular podcasts returning to your podcast feed starting in February, year 3 of myself, Kyle Schassburger, coming back. Is this year 5 of CSN Baseball?
Technically year 5, but year 1 only lasted, 3 or 4 episodes.
4 episodes. Yeah. So year 5 officially, year 3 of us doing this together. We'll begin back in February, the week of college baseball season. We've rummaged around doing a live podcast, possibly at Wake Forest because we're here in Winston-Salem. So that's in the works, and we've got some really exciting stuff in the pipeline planned for the postseason. Not going to reveal it yet because it's not set in stone, but folks, we are working hard to bring you the best and deepest and most relevant coverage you've ever gotten on college sports now for the college baseball postseason, starting with regionals all the way through Omaha. We are working hard. We have some stuff in the works, and we will hopefully have more information on that come December.
We've emptied the clip.
Yeah.
We
have. Oh yeah.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that. I'm like, man, you're putting a lot of stress and pressure on me already, and it's only October. But yes, we have laid the groundwork. We have put together the blueprints. Now it's just a matter of things coming to fruition, proper follow up. Proper head honchos and people above us up the food chain giving us the green light. So we do want to deliver on what Kahn just alluded to and teased, and that is the most epic form of coverage that College Sports Now from Learfield, powered by Learfield, has ever provided in the college baseball space. So more to come, hopefully, on that. I think we've covered it all, man. Jay Johnson, again, thank you so much. Bill Franquez for helping to coordinate and put that together. Longtime SID, touche. Just phenomenal. Go back, listen, subscribe, rate, review, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Again, College Sports Now, wherever you podcast. The Varsity Channel on YouTube. You can catch some of us in video form. Jay, audio listeners only. We'll be back in December. A lot of content, though, on this feed. Varsity Channel with the Phil Steele Show, as well as all the podcasts with Stephen Hartzell and Roddy Jones and Wayne Cook and Michael Felder, myself, Tripp Hurd. A lot of content coming your way. College basketball right around the corner as well. And we're here talking college baseball because why not? Halloween is here, and we're jonesing. We're jonesing to talk ball, and we've done just that. I do want to end it and give a note and at least recognize the life of former South Carolina radio analyst Tommy Moody, who did pass away earlier in October. Mid-October, very sad day for a guy and a sad time. And certainly will be a sad period for South Carolina baseball and all those that have consumed South Carolina baseball through the radio since 2000. Moody was a part of those broadcasts. Derek Scott, who does play-by-play, currently the play-by-play voice, had some good words on Twitter. Certainly some moving testimony on who Moody was as a partner, as an individual, and just the outpouring of support and stories of what Moody represented. There was never a question, Kahn, and you and I have met and spoke with him through our travels to Hoover and calling the SEC baseball tournament for the SEC radio network, but there was never a question on who Mr. Moody was pulling for. I mean, he was a former player, an encyclopedia of South Carolina baseball knowledge, huge heart as well. So thinking about the family that he has left behind and certainly all those impacted by the loss of Tommy Moody, longtime radio analyst for South Carolina baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think South Carolina and especially South Carolina baseball, Tommy Moody is one of the names that pops into the forefront of your mind. He'll be truly missed. He could do it all. He could do play-by-play. He could do color. He knew the game inside and out. And he's one of those minds and those voices that you can never replicate for the fans of South Carolina that have grown up and listened to Tommy Moody for a long, long time. And again, our thoughts are with his family and the entire family of the University of South Carolina and their fans, because this is a big, big loss for them, and we certainly feel for them and wish them healing and peace and remembering and celebrating the great life that Tommy Moody had.
Even the Tommy Moody Baseball Scholarship has been formed since.
Awesome. That's great. I didn't see that.
In his honor. So awesome stuff. He's David Kahn. I'm Colin Schassburger. Thanks again to Jay Johnson and all of you for tuning in to this foul. I can't even say it because
Fall.
I want to say foul, like foul ball. That's how I want to pronounce it. But this
but it's a fair poll.
I say fair poll, foul poll. I'm human. I can't talk. I'm over it. I got to go get my daughter from school. All right, that's the fall ball edition of College Sports Now. Thank you for listening. He's Kahn. I'm Schass. We'll be back later in December. Continue to listen wherever you podcast College Sports Now.
It's Brittany, bitch.